Good evening. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, we ask you to call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number will also be posted on the live screen page at livestream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and further instructions will be provided to you at that time to join the video conference. You'll be asked for your name and item number to which you would like to address. And when the chair of the committee polls the interested parties, the Secretary Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for the presentation. You will also need to state your name and address for the record. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their name and address for the record, and a maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by the interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this is your opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision. This will mark the end of all discussions. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variances and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, agent, and other persons who have filed a written request for such a notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, and the last day to appeal the decision to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. So, we have one regret this evening. Ms. Murray is unable to join us. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none. Thank you. At this time, Ms. Secretary Treasurer, do we have any requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications?
No, we do not.
Very well. Thank you. We do not have any consent applications, and our first item of today's agenda is CAV 106 of 2020 at 39 Allen Street. Again, it's CAV 106 2020 at 39 Allen Street. If anyone is interested to speak to this application, they're asked to call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. 6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and you will be given further instructions to join the video conferencing. Okay, Ms. McCrae, who do we have online?
Okay.
Mr. Wilmont, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Madam Chair?
Good evening. Did you provide a presentation? Yes, I see town staff already pulling it up. Perfect. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Since this application has been supported, I don't need to go through it unless the committee would like me to answer questions. I just want to point out that we have designed this in consultation with town staff, planning staff, and heritage planning. The application will go through a heritage review and approval after committee adjustment. And we submitted earlier today after my client has canvassed the neighbors, one letter of support at least, and we're not aware of any objections to the proposal. So with that, happy to be answering any questions.
Okay. Very well. Just because of our new, I guess, system being in COVID, we need to give some time for anyone who's interested to speak to the application to call in. So if you want to take a couple of minutes just to quickly run through the application while we do that for the benefit of the public, I think that would be best. I know it's a new proposed dwelling, and the variance that you're requesting is a lot coverage variance, but I'll leave it in your hands to kind of go through it, and that will give time for the public to respond.
Okay, fair enough. Well, if the presentation, we could turn to page 1, the site plan, that would be great.
Town staff is pulling it up. Perfect. Thank you.
Great. So here we have a site plan that shows that the variance for the coverage is essentially the area of the covered porch at the back, and that is that represents the overage in coverage, and it represents approximately 2.9%, and that's both the covered porch and the small front porch at the front. The dwelling area is below the allowable coverage at 24.33, and the one-story covered porches contribute to the overall coverage. As you can see from the site plan, the house is well set back from the bylaw at the sides, close to 10 feet on each side, and whereas the bylaw requires 4 feet. And we've situated the covered porch so that it makes no impact on the neighbors. As you can see on the left of the screen, the neighboring house, the back wall of that neighboring house lines with the back wall of the covered porch. And at the front, it meets the average setback of the two properties. So because of that, we think this makes no impact on the neighbors and is truly minor in nature. Maybe if we can turn to slide 2, please. This just gives you a character rendering of the house, how well it fits in. There's no height variance required. It's appropriate, I think, for development here. And we can look at the back in the next slide, number 3, please. This is taken with fairly accurate renderings of the houses on either side. So you can see the space given in between and the openness of the covered porch. I think these 3D drawings show the character of it well enough. We don't have to look at elevations. And I think that's probably all you need to talk about.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Ms. McCrae, has anyone called with interest in this application in the meantime?
Not at this time.
Very well. Okay. So, Mr. Wilmot, you've seen the recommended conditions by town staff, and I'm assuming you're satisfied with them.
Yes.
And if you are, then we're ready to move this into committee and have a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as having reviewed the town's written report, staff report, which I do note is in support of the application. Also having taken into account the comments presented by the applicant's agent this evening, as well noting that there were no written or oral objections from the public. I do want to note that there was one letter of support in favor of the application. I am prepared to move a motion in favor of the application, finding that it's minor in nature and meets all of the 4 tests under the Planning Act, subject to the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the final approved heritage permit, as well as our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. A discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, application has been approved.
Thank you.
None opposed. Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, application CAV 107 of 2020 at 1225 Baldwin Drive. Again, it's CAV 107 at 2020 at 1225 Baldwin Drive. If anyone is interested in speaking to this application, the number to call is 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff are standing by to take your call and will be providing you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Good evening, Mr. Kieran. How are you?
Good. Good evening, members of the committee, Madam Chair person. I'm the agent for the applicant, and I will do a very brief presentation. I wanted to start by just clarifying and making everybody aware that there are 3 variances on the application, and we are removing variance 1 from the request tonight. We have been in consultation with planning staff about this. It was originally put on the application, but after their site visit, they said they couldn't support it, so we reduced the size of that. It was a deck on the back of the house. We reduced it so that it now complies. So we've given them new drawings to reflect that. And I'm not sure if staff is, if the members are aware, but I just wanted to clarify that variance 1 is being retracted from the application.
So you've submitted new drawings. Mr. Hassan, do you have those new drawings?
Through you, Madam Chair, I believe they're being pulled up right now, but.
Okay, very well. Okay, Mr. Kieran, if these are the new drawings, go ahead, sir.
Yes. So these are the drawings that were submitted to planning staff. I would actually like to go through my presentation, which is very similar, but just has some notes on it for clarification.
Okay.
So just the package I sent in earlier today, please. I also want to mention that my staff did canvass the immediate neighbors and was able to connect with 3 of them. and to explain the application, there were no objections noted. Just wanted to share that. Okay, so variance number one, I've just kind of clarified here. This is the area that we're talking about, and we're now within compliance. It's allowed to project 1.5 meters beyond that rear yard setback. So we're just clarifying that. Before, that deck was larger, so that's variance one, no longer required. Go to the next slide now. Page 2, yeah. So this is we're jumping kind of ahead here to variance 3, which has to do with the front yard setback reduction. And we've just bubbled the area at the front of the house to show that not the entirety of the dwelling is beyond the front yard setback limit. It's just kind of 2 areas. So that's number one. And number two, if you look at the back, sorry, still back to that previous slide, please. Yeah, so if just the other box there indicating, pointing towards the Conservation Halton setback line, I just wanted to explain that that's really the reason why we're being pushed forward, because that setback line is, as you can see, quite far towards the front. So that's really the main driver behind the request for that variance. Next slide. So the second variance, which is with the has to do with the RFA overage, I just wanted to let the members know where that's coming from. So on the main floor, we have a servery that was added. That's about 5 square meters, 4.6 square meters. And then if we can go to the next slide, last one. On the second floor, we basically provided a laundry room on the second floor, and then an ensuite for all the bedrooms. So bedroom 2 got its own ensuite. So that those three elements add up to the overage, which is about 13.7 square meters in total. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? I see none. Ms. McRae, do we have anyone interested in speaking to this application that has called in so far?
Not at this time.
Okay, so gentlemen, Mr. Kieran, if you're satisfied, then we can move forward with a motion.
Sure.
Gentlemen, the application before us is amended, so we are now asking for a motion to consider variances only 2 and 3, since 1 has been struck out. Who would like to move a motion? Okay, Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll be pleased to move the application as revised to remove variance number 1 be approved. Find that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I would note that there was no objection from the community to this application. And I would make that approval conditional on development proceeding in general accordance with the revised drawings as presented to the committee at the meeting. I did not see a date on those drawings, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well, thank you.
Sorry,
is there a discussion on this recommendation?
Sorry, I
go
believe
ahead,
that,
Ms. McRae.
I believe the date on the drawings is November 3rd. If you wanted to add that to your condition, Mr. Talowski.
Sorry, that was there was a plotted on November 3rd reference I saw on the site plan. That's correct.
Okay, very well. So the motion as amended to include November 3rd as the drawing date. All those in support? Okay. Okay, your application has been approved. None opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, we have application CAV 108 of 2020 at 539 Taplow Crescent. Again, it's application 108 of 2020 at 539 Taplow Crescent. The number to call to speak to this application is 905-815-6095. Again, 905-815-6095. Staff is standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Who do we have for this application as the agent, Ms. McCrae?
We actually have the homeowner, Norbert, has joined us.
Okay. I don't see them on the panel yet.
Yeah, they're there at the bottom. He doesn't have video, but he is in the meeting.
Oh, okay, very well. Good evening, Mr. Araujo. Am I saying that correctly? Sorry, go ahead.
It's Araujo. It's fine.
Araujo. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, go ahead. Did you send a presentation to go through?
We did, yes.
Very well. So staff will be pulling it up and go ahead. This is a new detached garage.
Yes. So we're the homeowners at 539 Tableau Crescent. The first slide here, I just included an aerial. So obviously where the indicator is our property. You'll note that we have an existing garage there. It's deteriorated and in need of repair. So if you go to the next slide, that's our proposed site plan. So we're requesting a variance to exceed the maximum allowable space and to be 65 square meters. We have letters of support from our immediate neighbors to the sides and to the rear. No objections. And that concludes our presentation for the most part, unless there's any questions.
Very well. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I have the property owner confirm the size of the building?
Yeah, I picked that up too. I was scrolling down on my screen to make sure that I heard it right.
Yeah.
The size of the garage itself? Like the proposed garage?
Yes.
65 square meters.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's not what we have, yeah.
Perhaps I can direct a question towards staff, because I note that the two variances use two different numbers. In the first variance, the total private garage space of 59.5, whereas for the coverage, it's using a 65.4. Perhaps staff can clarify the difference.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'm looking through the drawings right now, and I don't see an indication on the floor plans as to the difference in the size. Yeah, it doesn't appear that there's any separate area in the garage for areas such as storage that wouldn't be for the parking of vehicles as defined for a garage. So unfortunately, I'm not sure what the discrepancy is between the two figures.
So the total accessory building, it's in our package in the notice that went out. You'll notice that the first variance states that you would like the private garage to be 59.5 square meters on a lot having greater than or equal to 12 meters in lot frontage. And then the second variance you've requested is to permit a maximum accessory building coverage of 9.36%, but that comes up to 65.4 meters squared.
Madam Chair, the only explanation that I could allude to would be that the garage area would be the internal floor area of the building, whereas the accessory building coverage would include the roof overhangs and so on, which would include that figure, which makes sense for the variance 2 figure to be larger than variance 1 figure.
Okay. If town staff is satisfied with this, then we can move with it. We just don't want to have any discrepancies later on that get caught after we've ruled on the variance.
Yeah, Madam Chair, so the site plan shows the proposed garage being 32 by 22, which results in 704 square feet, and that's 65 square meters. So that would align with variance number 2. And then if I do a quick calculation, unfortunately, the floor plans don't show an internal dimension of the garage, but that's what my assessment would be.
Mr. Hardcastle, are you satisfied, or would you like any further clarifications?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm satisfied at this point.
Okay. Any further questions or items of clarification? I see none. Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Arujo, I'm having a hard time. I apologize. I just get tongue-tied. If you're satisfied with the conditions that town staff have suggested, we're ready to take the matter into committee and propose a motion. You're going to have to unmute yourself for me to hear you. Yeah. You're okay? Can we move forward?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay. All right. Who would like to move a motion? Gentlemen, go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the written materials, including the submitted plans and the staff report, and having heard the comments from the homeowners, I am satisfied, as well as those of the of staff on this matter. I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the test of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval, noting that the proposed garage will offer no additional negative impacts upon adjacent abutting properties that are not present with the existing garage. I would make that motion subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the garage be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated August 2019, and that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. And you did note that there were letters of support from adjacent neighbors, correct?
Yes, of course, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. Application has been approved. None opposed. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Application CAV 109 of 2020 at 1367 Willow Down Road. Again, the application number is 109 of 2020 at 1367 Willow Down Road. The number to call if you're interested in speaking to this application is 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff is standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Good evening.
Good evening.
Miss, can you pronounce your name for me?
Maya.
Okay. Maya. Okay. Thank you, Maya. Go ahead. Do you have a presentation? I know this is a newly constructed home.
Yeah, there we go.
Very well.
Good evening, Madam Chair and the committee members. My name is Maya Zlanovic, and I represent my husband and myself for our home at 1367 Willow Down. We're requesting a garage length variance for our already constructed home under construction home to 2.17 meters from the approved building permit of 1.5 meters. So we're looking for a 0.67 meter exception. We were previously at the committee for a larger square footage garage and overall RFA back in December of 2019. We were approved at that time, but we weren't aware that the garage didn't meet the requirements needed, and unfortunately through a series of unfortunate events, the garage ended up being built with the wrong survey. So as you can see in slide 1 here, this is where we stand today. We should have been back at the line to the inside of that garage there. where the yellow is marked off. We were always within our minimum setback, and we still are. Where the arrow ends with the minimum setback, that is an overhang of the roof above. If you go to slide number 3, you can see that the whole house is kind of on an even plane, and that represents what it looks like at 2.17 meters. So we're just asking for it to stay as it is there. If you go to slide 2, you can see there that's the current survey. It's pretty much in line with our neighbor to the north, and we do have a wall that actually protrudes even further than the garage. That's like a parapet wall coming out as an architectural feature. We do understand that we were supported by the town on this, and if you need any further information.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Zelenovich. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like the homeowner to confirm that the projection is actually, the additional projection is actually a roof form and not interior space of the garage?
No, it's a flat roof form that just represents an architectural feature. It'll have like an ACM panel on the front, just a feature.
Right, but not interior space projection?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Ms. Zelenovich, if you're satisfied with your presentation, you're aware of the recommended conditions by town staff, we're ready to take the matter into committee.
Okay.
Okay, who would like? Go ahead, Mr. Tlowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, when I was building my own house, I arrived one morning to find my contractor and surveyor having an argument in the hole while they were waiting to pour the foundation as to who had the footing in the right place. So I can appreciate that accidents do happen on garage sites. Having said that, having viewed the dwelling, which is essentially completed in the exterior at this point in time, I don't see that there will be an impact from this variance. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd move that the application be approved as applied for. Find that it meets the test of the Planning Act, that there's no community objection, and I would make that approval subject to the dwelling being completed in general accordance with the site plans and sketches submitted with the application, and that building permit, I'm assuming will have to get revised, so that would issue within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Tlowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, application has been approved, none opposed. Have a good night.
Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, application CAV 110 of 2020 at 171 Burgundy Drive. Again, the number is 110 of 2020 at 171 Burgundy Drive. Anyone interested in speaking to this application should call 905-815-6095. The number again is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing. Okay, good evening, Mr. Heather. How are you?
I'm good, and yourselves?
Good, thanks. So I guess town staff has your presentation. Go ahead, sir.
I believe that, yeah, I believe they do. Thank you all, Madam Chairman, committee members. Jason Heater from Hicks Design Studio on behalf of the clients at 171 Burgundy. We're seeking 3 minor variances to the current zoning bylaw. If we go to slide number 3, slide number 2 is just the variance request. Slide number 3 just shows a brief sort of overlay of the site. It's rectangular, slightly wider than it is deep. It's quite heavily treed, and all efforts to maintain tree canopy will be made. The lot slopes from back to front towards Burgundy Drive. and it slopes even slightly more heavily from the west to the east as well. I'll just deal with the variances quickly in the order that they were listed there. So the rear yard setback, if we can go to page 4. The setback in this case is taken to that covered terrace porch column. The house itself, the main body of the house itself, meets or exceeds the bylaw requirement of 10.5 meters. The lot is, again, slightly less deep, so the covered porch, it's unenclosed, single story, projects off the back of the house, thus the requirement for the rear yard setback variance. So again, it's to a covered porch and not actually to the house itself. The next variant, residential floor area. The variance is really program driven for this home. All steps have been taken to minimize impact of scale for the additional RFA to the neighboring dwellings and the neighborhood itself. The massing of the home has been broken into several distinctive features. The building faces have been stepped along the front facade as well as the roof lines. Particular attention was paid to the area above the garage and how that stepped down to the neighbor to the west. The house features substantial side yard setbacks. We meet front yards, we meet coverage, and relates well to the current sort of changing neighborhood context. For the most part, in this case, the additional RFA is centrally located in the main mass of the building. We've done all we can to reduce the impacts on the 2 wing walls. Final variance for building height. Again, it's a request. If we can go to the next one. Yeah, it's really that central portion of the home that is above the 9 meters. The remainder of the house is at 9 meters, or in the case of the garage area, quite a bit below that. The house sits up on a bit of a crest, given that the sort of far west back corner drives the height of this house. It's the high point on this property. So the discrepancy from finished floor to average grade is approximately 0.85 meters in this case. So that's really what makes up that additional request for height. Again, we've done our best to break up roof planes. We've done our best to provide relief on the facade of the building. It's been broken into multiple elements that both sort of recede into the home. And again, particular attention was paid to the garage side that steps down even farther to the neighboring sort of side split home. We've spent lots of time on this house with the planning staff. And the next slide will just show a quick little streetscape that was requested as part of this application. The house set 181 is to be developed in the very near future, it's my understanding. And you'll see that it steps, all the houses along this street step sort of in accordance with that grade that falls down towards 161 at the far end. So you'll see that we've sort of matched up the height of that garage wing wall with the side split at 161. More letters of support for this. Planning is on site again. We spent numerous back and forth with them to make sure we put something forward that was appropriate for the neighborhood, and we believe that the variances are minor in nature and meet the 4 tests.
Very well. Thank you very much for your submission. Are there any questions or items of clarification on Mr. Heather at this time? I see none. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your arm there, Mr. Tulowski. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to apologize if you get a sense of deja vu to the comments I made with respect to the house on Elton Park, recent meeting. Mr. Heater, I need to get a better explanation from you. You said that all steps were taken to minimize the impact of this house, and I don't see that. The house to the north, which is coming to our next committee meeting, I could see that claim being made in that application that's coming forward. And as you showed on your streetscape, they've brought in the second floor down to the eave, and they've taken the garage and wrapped it around the side of the house. To me, that represents all steps were being taken to minimize the massing of the building. Your application, on the other hand, is largely a full two-story house, and from my site visit, other than the house at the very north end, is about the only on this entire street. And I'm just not seeing how, and I appreciate from the staff report that it's smaller than your original request, and the staff indicated sympathetic to adjacent bungalows, which I'm not sure I can agree with that. So I'd like a better explanation from you, sir, as to how you actually took steps to make this house fit the character of the neighborhood, which is not a full two-story facade. Because I personally, I don't see that the effort's been made here to make this compatible with the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think when we're speaking to the compatibility, I mean, we've done everything in our power to step the house down to be slightly more single-story in nature, respectful to the house at 161. We sit below the height of the house at 181. And again, there are similar features to houses at 191 and 181. Again, they have two-story elements on their home. But I would submit that given the variance in the facade, the building facade, there are slightly lower sloped roofs. The single-story nature of the garage extension and the fact that it is set and recessed well back from the side setback line. The portion of the home that we're seeking the variance for is really for the central feature, the gable-to-gable dimension. I mean, as of right, if you were to look at this house, I could draw a big green box from the far side to the 9-meter height above the garage, and that is really, as of right, what you could build in this case, which would be far larger, far more massive in scale than what this presents, given the substantial setbacks on this home. That's really the attempt. And again, if you were to look at the floor plan on page 5, you'll see that significant portions of the floor plate have been carved out that are adjacent to the neighboring properties to the east and west. So again, we've tried to sort of concentrate the height in the central portion that we're seeking the variance for. And again, I would suggest that the variance for the height is really driven off of the back corner where the pool exists on this site. Unfortunately, that's the higher point, and we have to sort of respect where that is to allow proper drainage for the property.
I'm not sure if Mr. Talowski's frozen or... Oh no, your screen is okay.
Oh,
Mr. Talowski, do you have anything further? Any further questions, items of clarification? Okay. Mr. Heather, if you're satisfied with the conditions that town staff have recommended, we will take the matter into committee and start the discussions. Who would like to move a motion? Okay, Mr. Talowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't see any other hands up. Madam Chair, I can't support this application. And I don't accept the arguments that applicants make that, well, we could have built this and it would have been worse, but that's not what the applicant applied for. The applicant applied for a variance. And in my mind, I appreciate that the existing zoning bylaw we'll let them build a 2-story house and a 3-car garage. But then they're not asking to comply with the bylaw, they're asking for a variance. And when you're asking for a variance, I believe there's an onus on the applicant, I think you've heard this from me before, that they put the effort in to make the house that they're asking for fit the character of the neighborhood and mitigate the impact of the variance. And I have to go back to my earlier comments. The next meeting, the house next door coming for variance, and they brought the roof line down to meet the houses in the rest of the neighborhood. They've wrapped their garage around the side. In my mind, that is desirable, and that represents doing everything they can to mitigate. I don't see that in this application. I don't find that this is desirable, and move the application be denied.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the application be denied. All those in support? Okay. All right, all those opposed? Mr. Flemington, you didn't vote either way. I think there's a bit of a disconnection. There's a lag. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry, I was frozen there. I actually didn't hear all of Mr. Tilowski's comments.
Oh, okay. Mr. Tilowski. Okay, Mr. Tilowski, do you want to go ahead and repeat your motion?
As long as I don't have to repeat the comments.
No.
I heard most of it, but sorry.
So the motion was to deny based on that he found that the applicant did not meet the 4 tests.
As well as the negative impacts with regards to the development in the neighborhood and with regards to the other houses. And I did hear like the bylaw versus the variances.
Yes.
So I think I heard most.
Okay, very well. So are you for or opposed?
I support the motion.
Okay, so I will abstain, and the motion carries 3. I want to say approved, and the word coming out of my mouth is not approved. So the motion to deny has been carried. I'm sorry, Mr. Either, but you're gonna have to go back to your client and recommend that they come back with a better proposal for the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members, for your time.
Good evening. Have a good evening. Our last application of the evening is CAV 111 of 2020 at 343 Watson Avenue. Again, it's application 111 of 2020 at 343 Watson Avenue. The number to call is 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. And staff will be standing by to take your call if you would like to speak to this application. Ms. McRae, who do we have for this application? I have Arlene Beaumont.
Yes, she's the agent for the application, and we also have a neighbor, Mr. Ashworth, here with us as well.
Can you say that again? Mr. who?
Ashworth.
Ashworth, okay. He would like to speak to the application, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so Ms. Beaumont, are you with us? Because I don't see you on panel yet.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, very well. If you'd like to go through your presentation, and then we will have Mr. Ashworth address the committee.
Sure. So we are the agents for the owners of 343 Watson. We're here this evening to request 3 variances Two are related to existing floor area above the second story of the dwelling. I'm going to call it the loft area. The third variance is for lot coverage related to a new front porch. Just to provide some history on this property, back in 2002, the committee approved a variance for additional floor area on the third level of home, or the loft. And the floor area that was approved was 23.68 square meters. If we could go to my first slide, please. Yeah, so this is a plan prepared by Grenweiss Architects in July of 2002, and it shows that loft area consisting of a bathroom, so a sort of a tub and a sink in one area, and then a toilet in a second area, and then a sort of bedroom area. That's located at the front of the home, and that was constructed under a minor variance and approved permits. Sometime after that, some homeowner, I don't know which one, actually constructed floor area within the area of this plan that says not for human habitation. So if you go to the next slide, please. And you can see on the right-hand side is the floor plan of the loft as it exists today. And my clients were given this floor plan as part of the marketing package when they purchased the home back in May of this year. So you can see the entire loft area has been finished out. And I've highlighted in yellow the areas that my clients want to change under an approved building permit, and that's why we're here today to legalize this additional loft area that was constructed without permits. If you go to the next slide, please. This is also part of that marketing brochure that they received. You can see that the area with the desk is the back of the loft. That was the area constructed without permits. The smaller inset photos show a bedroom and the bathroom area that was constructed with permits. The next slide shows their intentions. They want to move that staircase from the left front corner of the home sort of into the middle of the loft area, between the legal loft area and the illegal loft area. With respect to the coverage, the next slide shows the front porch addition. So they're taking down the existing front porch, putting in a new front porch. The new front porch will be slightly shallower, but it will extend across the front of the home. So we do require a variance for lot coverage. The variance is for an additional less than 1%. I believe it's 0.94% of additional coverage is what we're asking for. So in conclusion, the loft area has existed for about 20 years. Some of it is legal, some of it is illegal. We're looking to legalize additional area that was constructed without permit. Further, when the original minor variance was approved back in 2002, there was no prohibition against area above the second story. In 2014, the new bylaw was enacted, and there is a prohibition now in the RL zone for floor area above the second story. So even the approved loft area is now considered legal non-conforming, and we require a variance to add to that legal non-conforming space. So that's the three variances. One is for the legal non-conforming space to extend it. Second is for residential floor area, and the third is for lot coverage. And I want to stress that this, again, it's been existing for a long time. It's at the top of the house. It is not adding to the massing of the home. Unless you knew it was there, you wouldn't know it was there. And we do have letters from the neighbors, specifically neighbors on either side and neighbors across the street, as well as a positive planning report. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Beaumont. We'll let Mr. Ashworth address the committee. Before I do that, are there any items of clarification or questions of Ms. Beaumont at this time? Okay, I see none. Well, we may have questions after Mr. Ashworth addresses the committee. Go ahead, Ms. McCrae. You can go ahead and unmute Mr. Ashworth?
It's up to him to do it. I don't have access to it. He's here as a panelist.
Good evening.
Okay, hello, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for this time. My name's Stephen Ashworth. I'm the neighbor behind this house at 342 Gloucester Avenue. And I did have a few questions, and all the questions relate to the third floor. The first question I have is, when did the renovations begin for this house? And I am leading to something. The second question would be, what is the purpose of the third floor? And third, is this property intended to have any sort of rental separations or multiple individuals in the house? And the last question, it would appear, because we can see the renovations taking place, that the renovation would appear to be in a completed stage because painting looks like it's taking place. And I was just shocked when I heard that you want to move a staircase, and I would have thought that the renovations would take place after you have done this and painted. So I'm a little confused as to the stage. We did also note that when the house was purchased, I believe back in May, that it seemed that renovations took place immediately. And that was a little bit confusing as to how this was taking place before potentially permits were obtained. Those are my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ashworth. I've noted them all, and I'll give Ms. Movant a chance to respond to them now.
So on item number 1, the original loft area was approved in 2002. So that front portion of the house where the loft was constructed was 2002 or thereashouts. I don't know when the back portion was done.
Sorry, just point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Mr. Ashworth, I'll give you a chance to ask further questions. It's just that I know it's a tricky kind of setting that we're in right now, but usually our procedural bylaws allow you to ask all your questions. You have 5 minutes for your presentation, and then we hand it over to the agent to respond, and then we take it into committee. But I understand that with this kind of setting, it's difficult. I will allow you to get further clarification, but just give Ms. Beaumont a chance to finish her response to all 4 of your questions, if you'd be kind enough.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Beaumont. So the renovations, the loft was constructed in 2002. Is that correct?
The first part, the front part was constructed. The part that they applied for variance for, the owners at the time applied for variance, that was 2002. The back part, I don't know when. Sometime between 2002 and 2020. I don't know. The purpose of the third floor is going to be a play area for the homeowner's children. There will be no rental. This is all for just one family. There's no separation for a tenant up there or nothing like that. And in terms of when the process, what's being done at the home right now, I can't speak to that. I don't know if they're painting. I know they're hoping to move in sometime close to Christmas. I don't know. They could be doing other things at the house that don't require permits. I don't know that.
Okay, and there is no external access to this third floor. It's all internal from the existing house.
That's correct.
Okay. So which part is the legal and non-conforming, the one that was built in 2002, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And to your knowledge, you don't know when the rest of the building, which now were triggered by a variance, that's why they're here, started?
I don't know, and that's sort of why I provided the sales brochure material that they received when they were looking to buy the house. So it was certainly done before they purchased the home in May.
Okay, in May of this year, of 2020.
May of 2020, yes.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Mr. Ashworth, you had an item of clarification. I will give you the liberty of asking that item of clarification before we take the motion into committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my point of clarification was related to the current renovations, not the previous renovations. And I repeat it, when I did call the town initially when renovations commenced, which was shortly after the purchase, I was told by the town that there was no permit in place at that time, and that would have been at the time of purchase because we were just shocked how quickly renovations were taking place. The point that I am concerned about is tonight you're seeking, I guess, a approval or to be brought forward to the committee. But with painters outside and watching the bins full of lumber and restudded, and it would appear, and the fellow who was outside the third floor window, I'm just a little bit concerned that you're in the final stage as opposed to seeking approval for a moving of a staircase. I find it quite unbelievable that actually you're going to make this renovation, and yet I'm watching the final stages of this paint take place. So I'm having some difficulty understanding, and I guess the fact that original permits weren't obtained, that tonight we're listening to a request for approval and want to hear from yourself. Has this renovation been undertaken? Is it underway at this point in time? Your answer, I believe, said you weren't sure where you were at this point in time, yet you're asking for approval to move forward with this renovation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ashford. Ms. Wilmot, you go ahead and respond, and then we have some follow-up questions, and I actually have questions of town staff as well. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not the homeowner. I am the agent for the homeowner, so I can't tell you what has been done to the home since they purchased it. I do know that the loft area, as I showed on that sales brochure, was constructed before they purchased the home. As I said, 2002 was the legal portion. Somebody along the way constructed the illegal portion at the back of the property, but it was constructed when they purchased the home in May of this year. I don't know what else they've been doing to the home. Some renovations don't require permits. That's all I can say. I don't know what other things they're doing to the house.
Okay. I will put Mr. Ashworth's mind at ease that they for when we do approve a variance, if we do approve this variance, they will still be required to get building permits. So if for any reason there was no building permit obtained, I'm sure town staff will be very firmly on top of that. But perhaps planning staff can comment about the history of this application and what they've found out through this process, if there were any inspectors and how these variances were triggered, and we can get a little bit of light shed onto the situation.
Through you, Madam Chair, unfortunately, I don't have the history of the building permit issuance or any construction that commenced without building permit, aside from any of the variance approvals dating back to 2002.
Okay, so it's a bit of a mystery. Okay, further questions or items of clarification from our committee members? All right. In that case, Ms. Beaumont, we do have recommended conditions from town staff. I know they are in support of your application. We've heard what Mr. Ashworth has said, and it's unfortunate that some of these constructions have gone without building permits prior to that. Having said that, we do have to look at the application that is before us and the variances that are requested before us today, and we'll open the floor to a discussion, a recommendation and a discussion, and we'll take it from there. Who would like to start the ball rolling? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Can I just interrupt? Sorry.
Hold
sorry,
on,
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor. I'm
Go
just,
ahead.
The town planner would, I believe, has something to say before we.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
There's a bit of a lag, so we didn't hear you. Go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Hassan.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll try and as quickly as I can dig through our digital files to see the most latest permit that was applied for. You might have to give me a couple minutes.
Okay, we'll give you a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So what I was able to find dating back to July 14th of 2020, the description of the information that I have here says changes to interior layout, replacing windows, existing windows to be framed in and insulated, heritage windows to be maintained, new structural beams on ground floor, changes to existing HVAC to include second furnace, no GFA added. So that's dating back to, the summer of this year.
And that was a building permit that stated these things.
Correct. So it was all internal works.
Okay, so it appears that whatever Mr. Ashworth saw after the purchase in May was still aligned with, at least for the most hall, what you're reading on that permit.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct, because there's a condition that I'm seeing here that says no work permitted to attic space, including mechanical and structural modifications.
Okay, and what they are applying for right now are the internal additions to the attic as part of their application for this variance.
Correct.
Okay, do you have anything further to add, Ms. Beaumont, or Mr. Hardcastle? I saw your hand up. Go ahead, sir.
I had a quick question. Mr. Hassan went quickly over, and I didn't quite understand what he said with respect to the attic space. I'm looking to understand with some level of clarity that any work that may have been undertaken without a building permit would be considered under the current permit before we deal with any variance that would include the additional GFA associated. So if Mr. Hassan could clarify that, I'd appreciate it.
So sorry, through you, Madam Chair, you'd like me to clarify if the variance we're dealing with would permit the work that's done without a permit?
Well, what I'm looking for is that the building permit addresses the matter of the additional GFA in the attic space. You'd made at one point a comment about no additional GFA, and then you said something, and unfortunately your microphone's cutting in and out a little bit for me. So you said something about the attic space and I missed it. That was in the last sentence or two of your commentary.
Yeah, so the last line in the description of the file that I have here says no GFA added. So it sounds like there was all just internal renovations. There was no additions in terms of floor area that were added. And then one of the conditions of the permit is that no work permitted to attic space, including mechanical and structural modifications. So I'm not entirely sure where that condition.
So I'm sorry, no work permitted to attic space?
Correct. No changes permitted to attic space, including mechanical and structural modifications.
So in that situation, our approval, so would there be an opportunity or a trigger to bring the homeowners back to remedy the lack of a permit for the second part of the attic addition.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that they would need another permit to deal with the attic space, including mechanical and structural modifications.
And that would be triggered anyways by the lot coverage variance, correct?
Well, it'd be I think it's the residential floor area variance.
And the RFA.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the legal non-conforming third story.
So if we are considering these variances, but we don't have a permit in yet, if we're to approve this, then what is the trigger to require them to come back in to remedy this under the Building Code Act?
Through you, Madam Chair.
Current permit or occupancy of the building be withheld pending the submission of a permit to remedy the previous the previous work without a permit?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that's my understanding that if the variance is approved, a permit would be required to remedy the floor area on the third story.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does that satisfy your questions? Okay. Mr. Tlowski, Mr. Flemington, anything further to ask? Ms. Beaumont, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so they're also applying to move that staircase, so they will require a permit. So they have to come back.
Because that's structural.
Permits. That's structural. That's the whole reason we're here. They need a permit to move that staircase. We need to legalize, all of this stuff before they can get that permit. So that's really the reason we're here today.
Okay, very well. Anything further before we take the matter into committee? Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Ms. Beaumont and staff for helping to clarify this for me. I'm going to put forward a motion of approval. The modifications, the additional space that is being proposed to be acknowledged. Sorry, I've lost my words here.
Legalized.
Thank you. To be legalized is not adding any exterior, is not resulting in any exterior changes. It's claiming space interior to the building that has been present. Notwithstanding that it's been illegal for a period of time, it is working to bring it into compliance. I'm satisfied that the impacts on adjacent properties, the streetscape, will be non-existent, and so the impacts will be minimal. And as and the additional variances, the additional variance with respect to residence floor areas resulting from that, and the additional lot coverage is for modifications of that porch, which I believe will only improve the aesthetic, and therefore I'll put forward a motion of approval, finding that it conforms to the appropriate tests of the Act, noting sections 45.2 and 45.1 of the Planning Act applicable in this case. And the approval should be subject to two conditions, those being that the addition and loft be built in general accordance with the submitted site plans and elevation drawing dated December 2020, and that the approval will expire in 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued.
Very well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And we do have 5 letters of support that have been provided by neighboring. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. We have to confirm the minutes for the October 27th meeting. Would like to confirm those minutes. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. And motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle. We are adjourned at 8:15. Very well.